Stunning revelations, to me anyway, about the FBI's handling of the Michael Flynn case, now putting pressure on many in the media who spent months blasting Trump's former national security advisor to come clean. Here to discuss it is senior writer at the Heritage Foundation, Kelsey Bolar. Kelsey, what's your take on what we now know about Michael Flynn now that these notes have been out over the last 2 days?
Well, the media is doing the same thing with the Michael Flynn revelations that it is with the Joe Biden allegation. That is, avoid covering it. When they do cover it, make it as boring as possible and then bury it. So it's very difficult to find and understand what really happened. Take the New York Times, for example. Yesterday, I had to scroll to its in other news section to even find a story. And the way they framed that story about it was Trump allies cheering that these new documents were revealed. They didn't actually tell readers what was inside those new documents about the FBI setting up a three-star general in a perjury tap. No, the way they framed the story was that Trump allies were cheering for this. Many in the broadcast media mocked those who raised the question about the possibility that Michael Flynn did, in fact, get set up by the FBI. And now, today, yesterday, did you see anybody playing back those clips, apologizing, admitting that they got things completely wrong and actively worked to defame someone who's devoted his life and career to public service? Of course not.
Right. Here's some of the headlines. New York Times. Flynn lawyers seize on newly released FBI documents. Politico. Documents show FBI debated on how to handle the investigation of Michael Flynn. That's the Q&A that they saw written up by Priestab. Daily Beast. The FBI didn't frame Michael Flynn. That's just Trump excuse for a prospective pardon, which is essentially what we saw from Andrew Weissman. And we see the pushback, too, in the Washington Post from Randall Ellison. He just talked about how he's a three-star general. How can you intimidate someone to not telling the truth? He never should have taken the meeting. I don't want to break down the whole situation, but if you are the National Security Advisor and are not talking to representatives from key governments around the world, you're not doing the job. And remember, this is how they covered Michael Flynn when he was rounded up and marched out. Watch.
The White House got was a blistering rebuke of their made-up claims that Flynn was somehow entrapped by the FBI.
Within the intelligence community, the thought was Michael Flynn may have been a turned agent to Russian intelligence.
Flynn was a double agent? Michael Flynn was betraying his country.
Really? So do you think that they're going to use this opportunity to say, I overstepped?
Of course not. We've seen this happen time and time again in the way that the broadcast media covers the Trump administration. And what's really sad about this situation is a man's life has been destroyed. Michael Flynn had to sell his house to afford attorney's fees, to pay to defend himself. And, you know, if the media did cover it fairly, I think most Americans would be able to take a step back and look at this situation with the FBI using very immoral tactics to go after a three-star general, and again, someone who's devoted his life to public service. I think most Americans would agree that is highly questionable tactics. We do not want to see our government using. Look, this is a difficult time for our country. This is a time when we need to be able to trust our government officials. And stories like this, unfortunately, degrade that trust and give Americans a reason to be very skeptical about our government.
Kelsey, and just important to point out, people will say to me, well, he got fired for not telling the truth to the vice president. The vice president yesterday weighed in and said he's more inclined now to believe that the former national security advisor unintentionally misled him in early 2017 because he did not remember everything that was in every conversation that he had on that beach that day. And the other thing that's important to point out is other agents didn't think he was lying either when they talked to him. If he had a lawyer, this whole thing wouldn't have happened. Kelsey, thanks so much.
Thank you.